and welcome to Two Italian Women
and the stories they tell
with Erica Martin
and Diane Bobolino.
Thanks for joining us today, and we're back in the kitchen.
We are with Luigi
Del Fuego, and the ingredients that we talk about making life more delicious. Is that not true, Miss Diane?
It is. I really need to see them. Can you guys see them?
I wonder if you zoom out straight up. Luigi Del Fuego.
Oh, he's so cute.
As Diane says, our only unpaid employee here at our little program. And so
we're in Bridget.
And Bridget.
She's just,
God bless you for being unpaid and just loving us and staying with us. So today, Diane and I thought we'd talk a little bit. I'm sorry, I'm so enamored with him. I have to move him over here. I'll be distracted. I will. I'll be distracted.
I'm the same way.
We were talking a little bit about triggers, and Diane and I were having a conversation about things that trigger us and how commonly used the term trigger is. Do we understand, though, really where they come from and why they're so powerful in our lives, right? So one of the things that triggers me is when someone, for example, says one thing and does the other. Like, that is a huge trigger for me. And when I go back to where that started from, you know, childhood experiences of friends or loved ones or people just saying they were going to do something and then not following through. So to this day, when people fail to follow through on the things that they promise, I get triggered. And really, triggered means I'm getting reactive, right? I'm getting reactive towards something. And so it's so important for those of you out there, as you're doing this spiritual work, to understand what your triggers are and where they come from, because that's the only opportunity you have to be able to do a course correction, right? And work on that activation and recognize that maybe your triggers are actually creating some of the problems in your life and you don't even know it. So Diane, when I was talking to you about triggers, like, what is something that comes up for you?
Oh my gosh, what were we talking about?
So many things.
It was a great conversation. Okay, we talked about, I know in the end, we mapped my trigger back to childhood. And we talked, oh my gosh, fill me in. Oh my gosh.
Well, there were a couple things. Like one was when you get reactive to people not valuing your time or changing things on you, like very last minute, and not really recognizing the implications to you or how valuable your time or schedule is. And I don't know, you gave an example of something specifically that was pretty recent. So I don't know if you want to talk about that.
I remember, it came to me. So I was talking about a trigger that came up in a work day. So it was about a change in a meeting last minute. It was like within 15 minutes before a meeting time, which triggered me, and not in a positive way. Obviously, trigger is not positive.
Generally not speaking, no.
And I reacted like, wait, I ended up changing a personal appointment of mine in order to be at the meeting. And I was like, wait, why are we changing the meeting? So in the end, I was saying to Erica, why did I not go with the flow?
Yeah, why did you ever react to that sudden change?
Yeah, why wasn't I like, oh, okay, so the meeting's changed?
And then we link that back to past work experiences where you really didn't feel very valued at all, right? And there was constant change, and those changes had a direct impact on you. And then you actually wrote that as your story, you know, and speaking your truth. So why don't you talk a little bit about that? For those of you that maybe have watched some of the segments, you know, Diane wrote a chapter in a co-authored book, Entangled No More. And it talks about breaking free from like toxic or unhealthy relationships and patterns. So, you know, how did work impact you in the past that you now know shows up today?
Yeah. So the chapter I wrote was actually about a toxic relationship that I dealt with for over 2.5 years, reporting to a woman boss. And basically, it was so toxic that one of the issues that I dealt with was that the criticism was that I was not being proactive. I was always reactive. And till this day, which I was talking to Erica, how even just like a month or so ago, it still impacted me that, I didn't go with the flow the other, day when the meeting changed. And it came in that I was triggered from what happened many, many, many years ago, because of that toxic relationship. And in the end, I know that that is not me. But yet, when we have those toxic relationships,
well,
they
someone assigned it
trigger.
to you as though that was
Yes.
you. And really, I can speak to this. I've known Diane a very long time. Like, she really does tend to go with the flow. I mean, you do. You'll make adjustments or course correction. I mean, and we talk about being more type A personality, you and I. Some people are more like A plus plus plus. I think you said you're an A minus, maybe I'm a B plus, whatever. And for those of you out there who are type A, you know what I'm saying? Like, when you have everything kind of going a certain way, it does make life a little more easy to navigate. You feel a little more in control. I'm putting that in air quotes because we know that we never are. But when someone kind of asks you to own something that really isn't yours, that doesn't belong to you, and asks you to be or accept something about yourself that just really isn't true,
Right.
I can see how that would trigger you when you saw yourself behaving in that way and thinking, oh my God, maybe it is true, right?
Right.
Where the reality is to continue, and it wasn't a one-time meeting, right? It was many, many times, and how many times you had to change your schedule, which meant changing your priorities for the day or your personal priorities, like a doctor's appointment. You do have the right to react. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having an adverse reaction to that situation. When it becomes a problem is when we're overreacting, when it's really not about what's happening in this moment, but it's about unresolved things from the past. And the truth is, we all carry those. How could we not? We're 50 somethings, and, think of how many experiences you've had throughout your lifetime from childhood to the present. There are going to absolutely be situations, circumstances, and people that are going to trigger past trauma. And trauma, I won't even get it. Maybe we'll do another one on trauma, but I'm not going to get into the whole psychology behind trauma. I don't think that that's really what we want to do today. But basically, trauma can be so different for different people. What might be traumatic for me may not be for Diane, and vice versa. So sometimes people are like afraid to say, I see this as traumatic. They take out that measuring stick and want to compare it to all these other traumas. Like, well, I shouldn't be traumatized because I didn't get attention as a child. That doesn't qualify as a trauma. When I look at someone who's gone to war and suffered trauma, or I shouldn't say that my boyfriend, cheating on me or lying to me should be a trauma when this person was sexually assaulted. We have a way of kind of taking that measuring stick and saying, well, my traumas don't qualify. Like, there's way worse traumas out there. And that's the truth. There's a lot of really horrific trauma, but that doesn't mean it wasn't traumatic to you. And if you don't understand, address, work on, identify what those traumas are, you're going to remain triggered. Make sense?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And I know one thing I was asking Erica earlier, as we like to get, our subjects together before we get together to get ready to talk to all of you. I'm like, how do we work on that? Because we all don't want to be in a triggered state.
Right. And the worst is being triggered and not knowing you're triggered. Like, thinking that what you're doing is perfectly reasonable or natural. That's actually, so it's not about not being triggered. It's actually about owning and recognizing that you are triggered and what was causing you to be triggered, because then you could do something with it. Like, it's taking that pause, right? It's taking a pause and saying, oh, I know this is my trigger. I know this is my button, right? I'm having a strong reaction because this is part of my story. This is part of my trauma, right? And then you have that power of taking the pause and then choosing how you want to respond or react. Because we always talk about you only have control over two things: who you're going to be and how you're going to respond, right? But if you're not recognizing that you're triggered because there's unresolved stuff in the background, until that gets resolved, it's going to show up in all different kinds of ways that you're not conscious of. That's why bringing it to your consciousness and doing like we call the work is so important. And how much work have you done?
Oh, lots of
Yeah, we have very expensive brains.
it.
Diane and I have very expensive brains, and it comes into the work we do spiritually, right?
Yes.
Because you can't be living in that state of reactivity and then be spiritual and peaceful.
And peaceful, so important. I remember, and I have it to this day. I've moved it to my new home. I still have a lot of unpacking to do. I'm going to do some of that tomorrow. So I remember purchasing it a while ago, but it just says peaceful. No, it says peace. And I remember being in a counseling session, and I remember the counselor asking, what are you looking for? What is your goal? And I said, peace. And I just think,
who doesn't want that?
That's what I just wanted. And that's still what I always still desire.
Although, there are some people who are addicted to drama.
We were talking about that.
There are some people who are truly addicted to drama. And I look at that no different than someone who's addicted to any kind of substance or any kind of addiction, right? Because in our hardwiring, the brain craves what's familiar or what gives it a charge, right? So if you've grown up in chaos and drama, or that's like something that's become far more common a theme than maybe it should have been, right? You crave it. You long for it. You don't even know you're doing it. That's the other part. Like, so much of this is unconscious. Why Diane and I take the time to prepare these episodes for you, because we want you to be conscious and aware so that you can then begin to make choices and not be in that stuck energy. You don't know what you don't know. So if you don't know, you can't fix it. But there are people who are addicted to the drama. They can't really live peacefully because sitting in the quiet is so uncomfortable. It's just so uncomfortable for so many people. If that's you, then that might be something to look at, saying, what is it about my history or my upbringing that keeps me in this state of constantly needing to be in chaos, overstimulated all of the time? But I would say the majority of us crave peaceful.
I agree.
We crave to be peaceful.
And you might be in a house, and I used to be in a house that didn't feel peaceful.
Yes.
I am in one now that is.
And that's a beautiful feeling, but one that you create. Right?
Yes.
It wasn't always,
Yes.
When we're young, we don't get to choose where we live, where we go to school, if we have to take the bus to school. Like, all these decisions are made for us. And then that's where
perfect point.
Yeah.
Sometimes when my dogs are barking, it's not peaceful for a little bit.
Oh, but they're so cute.
They
are.
Oh
my God, if you
are.
could see our dogs, they are so cute.
Yeah, they are.
But in general, peaceful is a state of mind. And until you can work through those things that rob you of your joy or your peace, you're going to stay triggered. And you may not know that you're triggered. You may just feel frustrated, angry, dissatisfied, right? But getting to the root of what it is that's holding you up and holding you hostage and robbing you of your peace is really part of the work of a spiritual journey. And you do that with clients all the time.
Yes.
You want to talk a little bit about why the energy piece is so important in terms of everything we're talking about, like why people really crave that, or what they get from your sessions when they do the healing energy.
Oh, I can just think about my session today. I just know we were meeting today for, getting ready for tonight taping. So I just know my session today, it was amazing for me as the healer, and also for my client. And I just know the connection of the mind, right, and the body and the soul, and the healing that happens. And you don't always know, but I just know, like in tonight's session, I was saying to Erica, I even heard it was a distance session, and there were, I would say, spirits on the line. There were other people on the line than just myself and the client. And the healing that happened, I just never thought I'd be part of this.
Yeah. And so when
It's
people talk about how do I move beyond the state I'm in, whatever state that is, today we're talking about triggers, right? Which equals trauma of some sort. They think that talk therapy may be the only way to do that. And it is important because if you have a really skilled therapist, they're going to be able to help you see outside of yourself. Like, we're not good at being our own therapist. We need that outside perspective to guide us, right? Because a lot of what we're doing is unconscious. But then it's the body, the body holds the story. Body keeps the score. Wonderful book, if anyone's interested. And so that's where Diane comes in, and how beautifully we work together, right? I kind of raise the consciousness on the issues and what's triggering them, and then you help them release it through the body. And for anyone out there, like, mind, body, spirit work in conjunction is probably the best treatment for mental health that you can do across the board, right? So if you're triggered today, if you've been triggered throughout the week, think about what it is that's really kind of activating you, and start asking yourself bigger questions. Like, where is this coming from? Why am I being so reactive? And once you can begin to do that, you now have the power to change the reaction, whereas before you really didn't, right?
I agree.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that trigger me, and I wish they didn't. I used to approach it with judgment. Like, oh, why am I so triggered by this? And now I'm just like, I know why I'm triggered by it. So I'm not going to judge it. I'm just going to do something about it. Sometimes it's removing yourself from those situations, people, things, right? And saying, this is just too much for me, and not judging it, just knowing that it's what you can or cannot tolerate.
And I even said to Erica, I'm like, until I started doing all this work, I didn't even know what a trigger was. Mm-hmm. And I know it probably was a little over a year ago that I could communicate back to somebody via text saying, what you just texted me triggered me, and I just cannot, communicate right now. I mean, I just can't. I was able to express
celebrate
these
moments.
Feelings.
We celebrate these moments. We do.
But that's how much, all of this work that I've been doing for, oh my gosh, it's been a long time. But it's kind of, what is that ripple effect?
Yes.
Of many years. So right now, if you're watching this and you're like, what are they talking about? What is triggers? Just keep watching us. We'll talk about this again. And you don't have to know what triggers, what it means.
Hopefully we're telling them what it means.
Yeah. But if you're like, I'm just saying, if you're feeling like this is a lot, it's not.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. Yeah. Just keep listening.
Keep listening.
Yeah.
Actually, when Diane and I come back, we're going to talk about the 4 agreements and how that all ties into this. So thanks for listening. Thanks for inviting us into your home. This is Erica Martin,
Diane Bobolino, and
Luigi Del Fuego.
I think we should go through some of our other things.
Oh,
we haven't done
outside of Luigi Del Fuego.
YouTube channel.
Yes, we are on YouTube. If we've earned it, we would appreciate a like and a subscribe. Same with Amazon Music, Spotify.
Any of the podcasts you might be listening to. If you can if we earn a 5 stars, that'd be great. If you can leave a review, we read all of them, and again, that helps keep us out there.
Absolutely,
we appreciate all of it.
Hoping to help people one episode at a time. So thank you so much for joining. That's 2 Italian women
and the stories they tell.
Stay safe, stay well.
Good night.